Hi, I'm Chad Griffiths. I just got back from a run. Hopefully no shadow demons followed me back. And you're here on Late Night Philosophy. The time is 5:05. I just finished a run around Seegers, gecko hands, and sit-ups, and I'm feeling slightly more energized. So, water is life. Take a sip, whatever beverage you have. It's part of the game. And let's begin. The second part of Plato's theory of the soul, and specifically, how it interacts with the virtue of justice. So, Plato believes, earlier we went over the three different parts of the soul: the rational part, the spirited part, and the appetitive part. And how each of them have a virtue associated with them. So Plato believes that when it comes to justice, a person has the virtue of justice when when they have all three of the virtues of the souls. That is wisdom, courage, and temperance. What he says is that when someone has all three of these virtues, they have what's known as a harmonious soul. The parts of their soul are in harmony. So, what exactly do they do to create this harmonious soul? Well, as I mentioned earlier, Plato believes that appetite needs to be suppressed. So first of all, he believes that the rational part commands both the spirited and the appetitive parts. It's what leads them to do whatever they're doing. The spirit supports reason by itself. Appetite does not support reason. Appetite is actually the enemy of reason. But the spirit, the passion, that allows you to have reason and rational thought. The appetite needs to be subdued, according to Plato. So, to create that virtue of temperance, that appetitive part is subdued by both reason and spirit. They team up against it. Because you reason that, okay, I don't need to go and eat the extra piece of pie. And your passion says, yes, you want to have an attractive body, you want to look good, you want to not be unhealthy. I will give you the courage to resist eating that piece of pie because the brain is like, yo, don't eat the piece of pie. And that's the rational reasonable part. But the main key to a harmonious soul is that no part wars against any other part. And the reason why that's key to understand is because an unjust soul is when your parts aren't harmonious, according to Plato at least. It's when they war against each other. So appetite fights reason, reason fights the spirit, spirit fights appetite. The idea that they don't work together to create that balance. Usually, it's most manifested when appetite is winning, but someone who's far too rational but has no passion or appetite might also be harmed, and someone who's too spirited will have courage, yes, but going back to Aristotelian concepts, too much courage is just foolhardiness. They'll do absolutely anything. If they have no reason whatsoever, then they're the ultimate daredevil, but at the same time, they're the ultimate daredevil in the way that they'll jump over a pool of barracudas, sharks, and piranhas without even blinking an eye, when if their bike fails for a second, they are going to be very quickly turned into the world's worst blender. So, if they're not in harmony, then that's unjust action, and Plato quite dislikes that. But if they're in harmony, then Plato's conclusion is that just action is wise action. It preserves the inner harmony. We also see here his preference for the virtue of wisdom and the rational mind, which I mentioned earlier, because he says that wise action is just action. And the virtue of wisdom comes from the rational part, so therefore that's the part you want to feed and encourage the most. So it can, rule and dominion over the other two. Unjust action is ignorant action. Again, the enemy of wisdom. It impairs or destroys inner harmony, and it feeds a part of the soul not fit to rule. That part could be the part of appetitive, which is one we see often ruling people. These are people who can't control themselves. They might have a gambling addiction. They might have an eating issue. They might have issues in their financial or family life because they just can't control themselves. Or it could be someone who just has far too much of the spirited part, and as such, they will do anything. They are courageous, yes, but their passions push them to things that are foolhardy or just actively damaging. And that's why Plato says to avoid this. So, Plato argues that all actions strengthen and weaken different parts of the soul. And again, he only believes in these three parts. But whether they strengthen or weaken different parts of the soul depends on whether they are just or unjust actions. So you don't want to feed the bad parts too much, because then they'll take over. And therefore, to Plato, choosing virtue is as simple as just choosing health. And if you choose vice, that's choosing disease. Because of his belief that different actions cause different parts of the soul to grow stronger and to be fed, well, then it just naturally comes that if we do actions of vice, then we'll feed the unjust parts of our soul. And as a result, we'll create disharmony, and we won't be able to choose with wisdom, we'll choose with ignorance, which is abhorrent to Plato. Therefore, virtue is the health and beauty and well-being of the soul, and vice is the disease and weakness and deformity of the same. So he argues that we should always choose health over choosing disease, so therefore it's always better to be just than it is to be unjust. Because we are diseasing our soul if we are unjust, but we are healing and harmonizing and making our soul better and more righteous if we do just action. Which, to remind, is the action of wisdom, in which we use our rational part of the soul to make our decisions. And therefore, his final thing about why we should live a life of justice is, 1, just actions preserve inner harmony and are conducive to mental health. 2, unjust actions destroy inner harmony and are conducive to mental disease. 3, as a general principle, it is always better to choose health over disease, and therefore, 4, it is always better to choose justice over injustice. And that's his argument. If you agree with his assumptions, it's a reasonable conclusion to come to. And therefore, that's Plato. I'm Chad Griffiths. Welcome to the spiral of insanity, sleep, and the one that I always forget at the end. The unknown and the unknown. I'll see you next time.